How's everything going?
Great. Going great, enjoying the still sunny weather in California.
Nice.
You're in
I think it
Riverside,
should be.
right?
I'm in Dallas,
You're in
Texas.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, my sister
pretty
my
hot
sister lives in
here.
Dallas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Have you been here before?
I have. Yeah, she graduated from UT Arlington. So,
Okay, almost at UT Dallas and UT Southwestern. You definitely know the schools around.
oh yeah,
So
definitely.
how, so how do you like it, Dallas? Or you're right now in Pasadena in LA, right?
That's right. Pasadena. Oh, you know, Pasadena, it's home now. We're maybe an hour to the beach, 20 minutes to the mountains, an hour to the desert, 10 minutes from the city. So it's just everything you want is within driving distance.
That's a perfect package you have around. Everything is,
Exactly.
yeah, LA
That's
is
why
a great place.
that's why the rent is so high.
Oh yeah, yeah. Rent is one of the maybe the complaints people usually have about living in LA.
Yeah.
So, Zach, could you please tell us more about yourself? Where are you now? What are you studying? And how did you end up Caltech?
Of course, yeah. So I am a fourth year graduate student in material science at Caltech. I work in the lab of Professor Catherine Faber, who she studies ceramic materials. Her expertise is in brittle fracture of materials, but each one of her grad students sort of has veered off into different directions with our research. But the one common theme I suppose we all have is we deal with ceramic materials, whether that's oxides, nitrides. That's sort of the one theme that we have in common. And I'm from Mississippi originally, so about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of New Orleans. So we would go to New Orleans for any fun we wanted to have because we my family's from a very rural, bucolic area, and yeah, I went to the University of Southern Mississippi for my undergrad. I did my research in or I did my degree in polymer science and engineering, and I did research in a lab there. And I applied to about I applied to way too many schools, but I applied to 14 schools, and then wound up at Caltech. I think I tell people the reason that I chose Caltech is because it scared me the most, and I've always been lured by a challenge, I guess. So yeah, that's what brought me here. I was originally in a different group, so a more polymer oriented group. Um, and I found the work very similar to what I did in undergrad, and I really wanted to change direction since I was in a materials program. So I knew I wanted to do something more, fundamentally material science. So that's why I've wound up where I am now, and I work on high temperature materials. So basically, developing new methods of additive manufacturing for high temperature materials. And I'm doing this in collaboration with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So they provide the materials. I sort of give them feedback on the experiments that we do. So I studied diffusion and doping of these materials, and sort of the mechanical testing, and how space would affect these materials. And NASA JPL and we meet about once a month to go over the results. And yeah, it's a great partnership. I couldn't be more happy with what I do.
Yeah, that's really fascinating hearing the story from you. And is it the projects kind of common between your lab and the Jet Propulsion Lab in NASA? Is it something that you're working together on that, or you're doing as a side project?
Yeah, so Caltech owns and operates the Jet Propulsion Lab. It's the only federally funded research facility for NASA. So it's a very unique organization. The way that Caltech, the president of Caltech, has some authority over JPL, and there's a lot of collaboration between Caltech and JPL. JPL is like 10 minutes north of Caltech,
Wow.
so it's really easy to get to. Um, and so my professor has worked with JPL in the past. Um, different students have had different projects with JPL. And when I joined the group, my advisor, Kathy Faber, she sort of gave me a couple of options, a couple of directions I could go. She said, I have some contacts at JPL who are looking at additive manufacturing of these high temperature oxides, and they need somebody on that. That's one option, and I didn't hear anything else she said. Basically, that's the one I knew I wanted to work on, and it's really a collaboration. So I have I'm on a technically a JPL internship, so I can go up there and do experiments. I can come back down here and do experiments. Here being Caltech. So yeah, it's very collaborative process. I've got about 3 scientists at JPL who I work in collaboration with. Um, One fella, his name is Tomas Seeger. He's sort of my counterpart at JPL. So we work in tandem with each other.
Is the project kind of multidisciplinary? What fields involved in the project you're doing on that side?
Yeah, definitely. It's very thermodynamics heavy. So you definitely have the materials kinetics aspect, because what we're doing is we're trying to directly 3D print ceramics. It's currently not possible to print ceramics without some sort of binder, whether that's polymeric or otherwise, that holds the ceramic together, because these ceramics are uh, they don't melt at some of these don't melt until 1700 Celsius. So the laser the laser wavelength does not input enough energy into the system in order for that ceramic to melt. So the problem that you run into is that when you print these materials, you have some shrinkage with the material as that binder burns off. When you're sintering this material, you have to compact the material usually. So there's a very limited range of geometries, and if you can print this material, you can get very specific, complicated geometries and use less material. But like I said, ceramics don't want to be printed in that traditional way. So what we're doing instead is adding a metal, adding aluminum to the system, and sort of letting that serve as our binder. And what that means is we also don't have to mill or break up these ceramic powders. That's normally a very useful tactic to sort of control the microstructure. So we definitely have that engineering counterpart. We have the material science counterpart, because what we run into as we convert this aluminum to that ceramic now for a fully ceramic piece is now we have some expansion. We see some pores forming in our material, which we don't want to happen. So the question becomes, okay, now how do we offset that? And then that sort of diverts back into chemistry. So it's very interdisciplinary. But I do tell people that no matter what you're studying at Caltech, whether it's biology, chemistry, it's sort of biology with physics, chemistry with physics, material science with it's a very physics heavy institute.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Caltech is more into engineering, I believe, since it's institute, technology institute, and it's really well known. One of my favorites also. I had a dream of coming one day to Caltech, and these days I'm applying for postdocs. Caltech is one of my target schools, and there are
it's a
really great
great
research going on.
it's a great place to be because it's so small. We only have about 2,000
Yeah,
students. I want to say that's including undergrad and graduate students. So that means you get a lot of one-on-one interaction with faculty. They usually all operate on an open door policy. So, and I'm a loudmouth. I talk to people. So if I see that their door's open and I have a question, or I will just invite myself in. And Caltech is very. That was a big part of why I chose Caltech, is that the people they're very excited about new ideas, and they are usually very happy to talk to students about ideas and hypotheses. And
that's right. So before getting into my questions more about the Caltech in California, I am interested to know more about your undergrad side because Caltech is super competitive and it's really hard to get into Caltech and you did direct PhD, right? You didn't have the master experience. And
That's right.
could you tell us more about what did you do as an undergrad and what was your CV that made you into Caltech?
Yeah, I had a really, I guess, circuitous journey is what I would call it. I originally started school back in 2014, started undergrad, and I withdrew after only one term because of some financial issues with my family. So I waited a while and went back to school in 2018. And at first, I thought, okay, maybe I want to go into political science. I didn't really know. I was never a science, a very science focused student. I was never good at math. Um, None of that ever came naturally to me. But I had a class with a. It was just my first math class. It was college algebra. I think it was uh, algebra 99 before you even got to 100. So it was very rudimentary math, and I was terrified. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to fail this class. And there was something about the way this teacher taught me, and her name is Emily McCardle. She's one of the most influential people in my life, and she just approached it in a way that made it simple, but made it natural. Sort of like I already had this ability to do the math. It was just sort of waiting for me to come upon it. And I tell people it's kind of like this wall was knocked down in my brain, and I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much space I haven't been using, you know. Uh, and then I immediately went to filling it up as soon as possible. So uh, I did very well in that class. I don't think I ever got less than a full marks on any of my assignments in that class. Um, and then that sort of inspired me. Well, if I can do this, then what else can I do? So then that sent me down the polymer science path, and I saw these graduate students working with these faculty, and I just sort of thought that I didn't understand the distinction because I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't know the distinction between grad student and undergrad. I just saw these students working with professors, and I thought, oh, I should be doing that, shouldn't I? There's something someone's not telling me. I need to be doing research. So I went to a professor. His name is Xiaodan Gu. He works with flexible electronic materials, polymer physics, wearable sensors, that sort of thing. And I said, I want to work in your lab. I don't know what I'm doing or how to do it, but I just know that I want to work in your lab. And he was very excited. He said, well, you're going to have a lot to learn, but here you can work with my grad student. And I just did that along with my studies. I just thought it was normal for graduate students to do throughout undergrad. And it kind of was for that program, but I realize looking back now that that wasn't maybe the most average undergrad experience. So I'm very interested in making students competitive for the graduate schools of their choice, or for the undergraduate schools of their choice. So I really try to impress upon people to go and talk to these professors, ask for positions in their lab, um, and don't be afraid of a no, because that's there are many different options. If you don't ask these professors, it's a no by default. So you might as well just go ahead and put yourself out there. Um, and that's really, I think, what set me apart in my grad school applications is the fact that I had basically 4 years of research under my belt. I was co-author on a few papers, all because I would just go to grad students and say, "Hey, do you need any help with any of your projects?" And then that would wind up, contributing uh, to a paper. So I think that that's what set me apart. I was very scared because the polymer program at Southern Miss is very renowned, but the University of Southern Mississippi itself is not one of those Stanford, Caltech schools. So I was very nervous to apply to some big name schools, um, because I didn't really know how competitive I was. But um, I think that's part of why now I want to sort of help students who don't have that background, who might be first generation college students, sort of help them learn how competitive they are, and sort of the steps they should take when applying for not just grad school but scholarships, that sort of thing. And but yeah, that's sort of what led me. That's how I got to Caltech, I guess I should say.
That's great. So based on our conversation so far, what I realized from your character, you're the person who appreciates the people who work with. Already you named three, four people you had experience working with them, and this is one of the great and important characters that I think people should have, especially in academia. You gave credit for them, and I think everyone will be happy to work someone like you, and that makes even the journey, the rest of the journey, really perfect and easy to progress and reach to the best
Thank you.
places that you're targeting. So, Zach, was there a moment in the Caltech that you can say, yeah, wow, this is the moment I was looking for when I was applying for Caltech? Anything that can be special for Caltech?
Yeah, there are a few moments that stand out to me, and um, one is the first time that my advisor and I went to JPL, and I knew that I was about to join this project with Caltech and JPL, and we were walking up the steps to the Mission Control Center, and it's a place that anyone can tour, um, but there was just something that I had never toured a place like this. I had only seen pictures of this control room in, you know, documentaries and movies and whatnot. But as we were walking up those steps, and I thought, wow, I'm really going to work with these people, on something that could wind up on a spacecraft someday. There was something about that that really hit me, specifically as we were walking up those steps to the control room before I had even seen it. And it was just another day in the office to them. My advisor had walked those steps 1,000 times, but for me, it was so profound. And I tend to take a lot of summer students. And one thing I always make sure that they get a chance to do is come with me to JPL and have that experience of, oh, this is where it all happens. And I think that kind of experience where you're interacting with this really influential space center as a part of your graduate work. That's something that's pretty um, pretty exclusive to Caltech, I would say. That's definitely, yeah, it's definitely one of the moments for me.
Wow, amazing. Has there any project you finalized with the lab you're working with so far, or is still everything on progress? Because I remember you texted me, you uh, successfully landed something in the space.
Yeah, so I think whenever you start a project, whether in grad school, undergrad, even in your career, you have really high aspirations for it. You can see where it's going, and you have to have those applications in order to get funding, right? You have to say this is where
Yeah.
it could wind up, because that keeps the politicians happy. Um, but I'm working with Brian McInerney, who is he's basically the materials expert for NASA. I forget his exact title, but he's one of the top material scientists in NASA. He might be the top material scientist. Um, but I saw that I had heard from a peer of mine at JPL that there is this experiment called MISSE. It's MISSE. It's the Materials International Space Station Experiment. Um, and what you do is you apply for a space on the International Space Station, and it's sort of it's a pretty big window panel, basically, with a ton of different slots and geometries where material samples can go, and they can be films, they can be solid samples, dog bone samples, and you apply. Yeah, I mean, you have to submit a pretty thorough proposal, and let me tell you, those NASA proposals are are next level. I did it basically on my own, and I thought, oh my gosh, I will never do another NASA proposal by myself. um, but you submit a proposal, and if you are accepted, then your materials go up on the International Space Station. An astronaut does a spacewalk, and they install this window panel basically in the direction that you want on the space station. And because I had Brian was able to serve as, you have to have a NASA contact. You have to have a civil servant, a NASA civil servant, to sign off on it. And he was happy to do that. He's been a part of the project since day one. So what's going to happen is our samples are going to be on the outer surface of the space station in a direction that we've chosen. You can choose 4 different directions, and depending on what you're trying to collect, that determines what direction they face. So let's say that you want a lot of atomic oxygen, you want to maybe risk some debris hitting your material, then you're going to put it on the front, what's called the RAM side of the spacecraft, the direction that it's moving in. Now we are pointing our materials in the zenith direction, so that's towards deep space, because really the materials that we've created are intended for deep space missions, right? Missions where there's rapid fluctuation, or just long-term degradation of these materials. So what that helps us to do is, yes, we do get the atomic oxygen from the lower Earth orbit, which is really impactful when you're dealing with oxide ceramics, but we also are collecting radiation from deep space. So we're almost taking a measurement of how much radiation we're dealing with, because one of the biggest considerations for NASA astronauts is they have to be shielded from these bursts of gamma rays, UV rays, this radiation that's bombarding that space station and would be bombarding any sort of aircraft that takes them to the moon, to Mars, or beyond. So it's going to be really useful when our materials come back after, I think it's 6 to 9 months that they'll be up there. But they will come back, and then we'll be able to compare them with the materials that we've put in a simulated environment, simulating that space environment. Now, the ones that we currently have, I can tell you, are very degraded.
Oh,
But that's because we are really over bombarding them, I guess you could say. What we expect when they come back is that they will not have changed much, because we shouldn't be seeing that sort of degradation of our materials that we are, that we're placing on them. Now, I think it would be interesting if they came back, discolored and damaged, because that would give me more to investigate. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
how does it feel to see your contribution reaches to that level of the application out of the space, out of the Earth, and it's really fascinating, honestly, to see you can do something and it can get into the space and become some part of the things happening. And who knows, maybe in the future, people are gonna understand more about the
Right.
contributions you had and then the field of the space. And because the impact of it, I believe, it's not easy for people to feel it, right? Except the people who are directly involved and studying about it. It's not like introducing some medicals or some
Exactly.
techniques that people can daily use. Your work is behind the scenes somehow, but it
Right.
contributes a lot to human life and humans' future. So,
That's a funny question, because I'm currently writing I was recently elected as the one of the co-chairs of the Caltech Graduate Student Council, and we write a speech for the incoming students who are actually coming next Friday. So the speech is next Friday, and I was sort of thinking about that, about how these small steps lead to something much greater, right? I mean, we read papers all the time. I'd like to be able to read more papers, but we read papers all the time that have all these names on them, and we don't really think about the contribution of all these people. But we're building off of those every time we cite these papers, and so I was actually just thinking about how to sort of incorporate that into the speech. But you're so right. It's very often, I mean, it's very often misinterpreted because my family, for example, if you ask them what I do, they think I'm a rocket scientist. they they say they they say, "Oh, I think he's sending something to Venus," but have no idea what's going on. And I've told them a million times. Um, but if it gets people excited about science, I think that's the most important thing that we can do as far as the public, because I think scientists sometimes like to live in their white towers and feel superior to people, lord over people with their intellect, and they forget that everyone outside of science has a voice in the funding that we're going to receive, right? Because they're going to be voting on the politicians that support us. And then the politicians that get into office are the ones that are going to be signing bills that, support the budgets that support us. So I think it's very important to, when we as scientists do speak to the public, not demean them, because people are generally not stupid. They just, where they've devoted their interest and their knowledge is just in different places, a lot of my friends have no idea about music and know nothing about pop culture, but they can recite the periodic table, start to finish. So I think it's important not to demean people, but speak to them in a way that they can really understand what we're doing, or at least be excited about it. Yeah.
That's true. If someone only knew one thing about you outside academia, what would it be?
Hmm. That's a good question. That's a really good question because we devote so much of our lives to academia that sometimes we forget we forget who we are. Um, I think it's that. Um, well, there are two things. One is that I'm a product of the environment that everyone I've met has shaped. Right, um, my my family, my professors, my friends. Um, and then something I think that's completely unrelated is that I I love music and I am a musician. I did
Wow.
I did just start a band with a friend of mine here. Um, so I sing, play guitar. Not I'm no front man with the guitar, but I do sing. My friend Jaden plays the bass and the keys. Our friends Evan and Ethan play guitar and drums respectively. So yeah, we have
So cool.
lives outside of just science at Caltech.
So what kind of music you prefer more?
Well, we play a lot of Zeppelin, we play a lot of Van Halen, classic rock, I guess you'd say,
Okay.
but we're now sort of moving into 90s rock. So maybe in a few months we'll work our way up to modern day.
Nice. Nice.
We don't
So
have a
yeah,
band
that's
name yet, so that should tell you how new we are.
yeah, maybe you should think about it.
Maybe you can send me some suggestions after the podcast.
Of course. I am a fan of Kiss, if you know, and also Pink Floyd. I think they are close to somehow what you're doing or
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, we definitely have a couple of Kiss songs lined up on the repertoire.
wow, okay, amazing. So I can't wait to hear your
That's right.
track. Please. So I did an interview honestly with one of the singers, but he's from Iran and he do rap, hip
Oh
hop.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
He's also having new style, combining the traditional with modern hip hop songs, and he's really great. And
I think it's so important for especially grad students. I started to say scientists, but usually when you're in your career, it's easier to have hobbies and families and whatnot. But I think in grad school, it's so important to have hobbies that pull your attention from your work because it can really consume you if you're not careful. And
yeah,
that's part of why I joined the group that I joined is because I saw all of the people in the group having lives, not coming into work on the weekends. It was really refreshing to see that work life balance. Um, and I think
That's true.
other than the chemists who have to really baby and nurture reactions, I'd say that that is surprisingly pretty common at Caltech, having good work-life balance.
So we can say people in Caltech are not one-dimensional bookworms just studying every day.
Well, we're nerds. I can say that proudly. We are definitely nerds. I've learned that if you really want to get Caltech people going, just just offer a hypothetical. You know, would you or what do you think about? Because they're very creative people. You just have to find a channel for that creativity. And man, a hypothetical really, really is a hit around here. But no, not one dimensional at all. Just big nerds, I guess, is what you could say.
Makes sense. So Zach, what's a typical day for you? For example, can you explain your Monday for us from the start to the end?
Yeah, well, I'm safety officer for our group, so I deal with a lot of emails, just about keeping things stocked in the lab, questions about chemical safety. Um, we've also got some construction going on in our building right now, so uh, more of my time than I would like is spent dealing with safety issues that arise from that construction. So usually, dealing with emails is the first thing that I do. I really try to. I used to think I'm going to read a paper a day in grad school. That's that is, uh, hey, props to those that can do it. That it's not me. So I try to read a paper a week. I usually, I'm trying to be more particular about the papers that I spend a lot of time on because you can get to the end of these papers and realize, wow, that was really not very useful for me. It could be useful for somebody, but not me. So I try to spend a little bit of time each day reading, and then I usually check on any reactions that I've left over the weekend. And a reaction for me is just placing my materials in a box furnace, having it ramp to 1600 Celsius, hold for 5 to 8 hours, and then let it cool back down. Very simple. I don't have to stay with it, right? So then I might check those materials, go ahead and do my sample prep. Uh, Techniques that I use a lot are scanning electron microscopy, X-ray diffraction. So really looking at the crystalline structure of these materials and then consolidating that with the microstructure of the materials. So you're dealing with the atomic and the micro level of these materials and seeing how those affect one another. I mean, the pyramid of material science is, what is it? Structure, properties, processing, and performance. And really, I deal with all of that in what I do. I mean, I'm really in a good project for that pyramid. I like to use it when I talk to people who are not in material science, just to sort of let them know what we do. So the techniques that I use usually help bridge those connections between structures and properties, performance, looking at the microstructure. How is that going to scale up into, a panel on a spacecraft, for example? And then that can take hours to analyze the data from that. I spend a lot of time at the microscope because I want very crisp images. I want my audience to be able to, really distinguish what they're looking at.
So are you micro planner? You have detailed plan for every day, or you have just the general things, I'm gonna do this tomorrow and that's it?
When I was in undergrad, I was so organized. I had a very clear calendar. In grad school, I haven't had as much because so much comes up at random intervals and changes my plans. So I put every meeting on my calendar, really time sensitive things, but I don't map out when I'm going to lunch. I don't map out, how long I'm going to spend reading things. I used to do the Pomodoro method, where you spend 25 minutes, take a break, 25 minutes, and it might be 20 minutes, whatever it is. But it's just not. it's not sustainable, I guess I should say, for me, because things will pop up, and I kind of like being flexible now. I think it's a an important skill to have, is to be flexible.
That's true. Are you more of a night owl, grounding late, or an early morning person?
I like to be a morning person, but I recently went to Germany for a week for a conference, and that completely I still have not been able to get myself back in order. And I'll tell you one thing, I I have learned that I'm thinking so much better at night. I don't know what it is, but there's something about, uh, I don't have it being dark outside, having a lamp on my table, and yeah, there's something really conducive to just deep thought and reflection. So I don't know. Maybe I'm becoming a night owl.
Yeah, it's hard when it's out of the timing that you have special plans. It's getting destroyed. And it's really hard to make it back. For me, it's really hard because these days also I'm working on writing thesis, finalizing my PhD defense stuff. I usually sleep at 4 or 5 a.m. and
Oh,
it's really hard. But when you have assignments, when you're going to the lab, the story is different, I believe. It's easier to keep track of everything on a daily basis. But yeah, when you have tight and intensive deadlines, the story is different. So
definitely.
Caltech has a reputation for intensity, the hard time students usually have, right? Well, what's something people don't see behind the scene at
Hmm.
Caltech?
I think it's. I mean, it is intense. I can say we're on a quarter system, so anything I think that derives from the semester system can be a shock to people. It was for me when I started here because those quarters are so rapid. There's so much information thrown at you in a very short time frame. If you come from that environment, it's a pretty simple adjustment. Um, so it is the classes were. I remember calling my sister my first year and crying
Oh,
because I said,
that's
I don't
tough.
think I don't think I can do this. I think the classes are just so hard. I ended up getting an A in that class, so that should
Wow.
tell you I was just overreacting to one small bad grade. But I think the part that people forget about Caltech is that we have um, mostly open book open book exams. So all of our homework is open book. Well, I mean, homework usually is open book, but they encourage us to collaborate with each other to do homework. And all of our exams, with very few exceptions, are take home and usually open book as well. There might be some specifications where they say, please don't use this resource. And Caltech takes its honor code very seriously. So people in most cases don't deviate from that. Um, so that lessens the anxiety of some of these exams because I'll give you an example. My first year here, I was in a class and my friends and I were working on this one homework problem, and we could not figure it out. It was in statistical mechanics, uh, and we all submitted different answers because none of us could agree, with each other. But when the professor talked about it in class, he said, "Yeah, there's really no answer for this question. We haven't discovered one just yet, but I really wanted to see how you all were
Wow.
thinking." So that's kind of the thing you have to think about is the professors that are creating these tests and homeworks. They're some of the top minds in their field, so that seems like a reasonable a reasonable request from them. So yeah, I think that
Maybe
sort of
that was one of
reinforces.
the $1 million unsolved questions on the internet.
Maybe. Well, none of us got it right, so none of us are millionaires. I don't think he
Okay,
would have
that's.
told us it. Well, maybe he would.
Have you ever failed in any courses, in any projects at Caltech, and what was the output if
Let's
that
see.
happened?
Now, I remember a class, for some reason, electrochemistry was very difficult for me. So I took a class with Professor Kimberly C. Fantastic professor. It's my friend Jaden's advisor. And fantastic professor, really, really fun spirit, very difficult problem sets for me, because you have to think, I had always dealt with organic chemistry. And then you go to electrochemistry, we're dealing with, solid electrolysis, solid state electrolysis, a lot of things that I was not familiar with, right? Polymers are mostly non-conductive. I mean, there are exceptions to this rule, but most of the ones that we dealt with were insulators. So yeah, I remember I failed one of those homeworks, and I failed big. And I had never failed anything in undergrad. But then I realized every single grad student at Caltech was going through the exact same thing. We were all failing in different classes. It was all the first time any of us had failed things. And then it's still the way that they have it structured, it still works out. I mean, they want us to fail. That's kind of the I think the I don't know. Sometimes I think they do it on purpose, but
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think that took the pressure off of trying to do so well on homeworks, and just learning the material and then trying to apply it to my research, because the research is really what matters in grad school.
So do you think going into prestigious schools like Caltech can change people, or do you find it's just students doing their best like anywhere else?
Well, I think that school is what you make of it, across the board. So I think that students, um, for example, I have friends that are still at the University of Southern Mississippi who have really been changed by the coursework they're doing and the projects that they're doing. But that's because they want to, they want to grow, they want to be better. Um, for me, I wanted to challenge myself with a place like Caltech because that name was so scary to me, right? And now that I'm here, I realize that a lot of the people are really not that different from the people that I've worked with in the past. If anything, we are pretty good at balancing our time. Um, but I really don't think that there's some big factor that distinguishes people from, Caltech from University of I don't know, Southern Mississippi or Florida or where, what have you. I think that if there is one difference, I think that the professors at Caltech really want to challenge you. They really enjoy interacting with the students, and because we're such a STEM focused institute, uh, those are the conversations that we're having all the time. I mean, I can point to a cafe outside my window here where every single day you walk through and you hear these discussions happening of really high level science. So I think that there are certain things about these big name institutes and schools that set them apart in those kinds of ways. I think that's what sets Caltech apart in our way. But I think, I think that each school has unique things that can cause a student to really become better than they are, as long as they allow themselves to do that.
Yeah, that's true. The environment also is really important, right? And it can impact you in a good or bad way. It depends where are you and
Right.
who
See,
are
I'm
around you.
I am a nerd, so I'm totally okay with being around science people all the time. I really like the fact that it doesn't matter who I talk to here; they all have some kind of baseline understanding where they can meet me, um, and sort of pick up on the pieces of my project. Um, that's not the case for. I mean, that might be the case for MIT and certain other STEM focused schools, but it's definitely a big factor in why I came here.
That's so true. So, do you have any weird or funny story that has happened in the lab, office, or dorms that you can tell us from your whole
Oh
academic
yeah.
life?
Uh, I couldn't count the stories that have.
Oh,
I mean, people are not afraid to take big risks at Caltech, and that ends up backfiring a lot. So yeah, there are a million and two stories about the. And I also think that places like Caltech attract a certain type of student that just tends to be, um, how do I put this? Maybe a little socially unusual. That's the way I'll put it. And I'm counting myself in that. I'm totally counting myself in that. One recent example of something crazy that happened is I told you we're doing construction, right? Or we're not, but construction is being done on the building. They have built a partial wall down our hallway to sort of protect us from the dust that's kicking up, and you know they're very loud in there, so it kind of helps insulate some of that sound. Well, one of the construction workers actually got himself stuck in this area. All the rest of the coworkers had gone home, and they bolt it and lock it from the outside after they've left. Well, this guy didn't have his phone. He had no way to contact
oh,
anybody. So what he did is he took a handsaw and he cut a hole through the wall so that he could crawl out of it. And, and my advisor, she said that she was sitting in her office and all of a sudden she heard, she thought, what is going on? And she comes out and there's this guy, you know, burrowing out of this out of this wall. But yeah, the students are just as the undergrad students at Caltech are some of the. I really have to say the undergrads at Caltech are some of the smartest humans I've ever met. They they're different than the grad students. You know, they don't have that research under their belt, but they have all of this unbridled curiosity and creativity. And some of the things they come up with, let me just tell you, it's so fascinating. I mean, they have these robot battles with each other, all these different droids that they've built, and um, yeah, it's fascinating to see them interact with each other and the things they interact about.
that's dream, I think, for many students to study in Caltech. Yeah, I hope the people watching us have enjoyed so far and try hard, and one day definitely they can reach their goals and what they're looking for. And Caltech is, I know, for the people from my country especially, is a dream to come to Caltech. I have 2 or 3 friends so far in this 5 years. They could make it into Caltech. I have so many friends who went to MIT, Harvard, and I have many videos from those schools. But Caltech is really hard, and because it has low quantity of students and
Right.
super high quality, that makes it super competitive and hard to get into Caltech. So,
Well, let me say that if I can encourage people, be persistent. You know, reach out to these faculty before you apply. Learn from them. See if Caltech's right for you first, of course, because you're making a commitment to a place where you'll be working for 4 years as an undergrad, 5 to potentially longer as a grad student. But really bug these professors. They get 1,000 emails from interested students a month, But what is it that's going to set you apart is be intentional. Say, I read this about your paper. I liked this about your paper. I see that, you can see in these papers where the authors, other grad students say future work is XYZ, you know. Uh, we still have work to do in these areas. Okay, then that's your cue to start thinking about that. Say, these are the gaps that they don't have currently in that lab. How can I contribute to that? So then when you send an email to that professor, you can say, I see you're working on this. you need this, you need someone to work on this. That's where I could come in. And I think that is really beneficial in making your email to professors stand out. It makes it intentional. It makes them look at the way that you're contacting them and say, they really do, they really care about my work because they put in the time, they see what we're working on, they see where the gaps are. So that's just a little strategy I want to leave with students who are really interested in working at these places and might not have, they might have reached out 100 times and they just don't get these responses. Think about what you're saying to these professors and maybe use that strategy. That might be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for your advice. So, Zach, what do you think people misunderstand about Caltech students?
Hmm. Oh, there's so much. I think that well, I think one of the biggest things is that we have no social lives, or that we are, um, constantly talking and thinking about science. But we really, I mean, my friend group, for example, there are about 8 or 10 of us who have absolutely forbidden each other to talk about science outside of off campus. When we go have dinner and somebody says, "Oh yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. When you think about this exponential and how that impact," we're like, stop immediately. We're not going to talk about that. We get enough of that day to day. So, um, but I think another common misconception is that we are all dedicated to a career in academia. And really, it's been really interesting. These past few years, I've seen more and more grad students and undergrads that are really interested in pursuing careers in startups. They have some brilliant ideas as far as startups around here, startups and industrial positions. So I think that's another misconception that people have.
So, do you see yourself continuing academia, or you want to shift into industry after graduation?
Now, I'm one of the holdouts. I think I want to go into academia, just because I love
Oh,
mentoring, I love teaching, um, I love interacting with students, and I also love research. So I really like the idea of having a lab in some capacity. So maybe that doesn't mean being a professor, but I really do want to have a lab. I think, and help mentor in some capacity.
great. So, if you travel in time, what advice would you give you to your younger self before starting the college life?
I don't think I would have given myself a single bit of advice. I don't think I would have said one thing, because I think my confusion with the process is what really benefited me. I didn't know anything about what I was supposed to do. So therefore, I did that extra step. Um, I think if I had known what to do, I might not have done as much as I did. And I'm really glad I did. I learned a lot. I met a lot of fun people, and I had a lot of great opportunities because I just didn't know. I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I just did everything. So I don't think I would give myself a single shred.
Okay, that's great to hear that. So, I think I have one more question left, and I'm gonna give you some words. I want you to express your feelings about it.
Okay.
Okay? So
I'm ready.
the first one is AI, artificial intelligence.
I think it's very valuable. And I think that we as scientists need to learn how to coexist with AI. It's not going anywhere. You know, that's I'm so proud of Caltech for its response with AI. As soon as it came out, Caltech really grasped. That's actually the theme of our convocation this year is AI. So we're really trying to integrate it, and I think that the professors who resist it are going to really struggle to keep up with students and their attention. I mean, our world has changed in so many different ways before. This is a new change, and I think that we just have to, we have to understand our importance. I mean, our individual input is the part that no model is going to be replacing, right? That determines what matters. And I think that as long as scientists remember that, then they remember their own importance. and how we just have to coexist.
That was a great answer. The second word is food.
Oh, let me tell you, uh, Los Angeles County has some of the best food in America. Oh, the Chinese food, the Korean food, the Mexican food here. Oh, um, there's a Bornean restaurant nearby, which is fantastic. Thai food. Oh, don't get me started about food. I'm a
What's your
who's
favorite?
my
What, you're not picky
favorite?
either?
Oh, my favorite might be I think it's a tie between Mediterranean or Korean barbecue.
Okay, cool. So I'm sure you will love Iranian food.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Have you
oh
tried
yeah. I love.
kebab or that kind
Oh
of food?
yes. Oh
Okay.
yeah. It's fantastic.
My last word, Zach. The last word is the United States of America.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you saved the best for last. I think I have a lot of thoughts, but I guess I'll say that I think it's just a little confused right now, but it can be steered in the right direction. This is me speaking not as a politician, but just as a scientist, because I've seen the cuts made at JPL because of slashed budgets. I've seen people losing their jobs and having to find, I mean, scientists, good scientists who have really contributed to their fields and have been in their jobs for decades. I've seen them lose their positions, um, but they found new ones, and they're doing just as great because that's scientists persevere. So I think confused is the thing I feel about the United States, but it's our job as scientists to turn confusion into understanding. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. And this is the end of the conversation, and I appreciate it. You accepted my invitation in the first place, and we had an amazing conversation.
Oh,
And
it's been so much fun. Yeah. Stop by, visit Caltech sometime. I mean, I'm happy to show you around. And
sure, sure, definitely. I will definitely visit, and I will keep my connection with the people. Especially I do interview because I really enjoy talking with the smart people, and people around me can feel the difference when I do interview. I have 2 3 days really great energy because
that's
I
great.
talk to smart people. It makes me really motivated to work harder, to have
Yeah.
really good passion stuff I'm doing. And yeah, that's really a great opportunity that I have to have a conversation with you. And I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, we will see you soon with the future coming videos. We have a lot of interesting conversation with the smart and great students like Zach. And yeah, see you soon and have a great day or night or time. Take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me.